Metal Gear Solid 5, which may well be the last ever Metal Gear game, is coming out soon, but how much of the entire series' story do you actually understand? If you answered, don't worry, I'm here to help you. I am going to recount the entire saga right here, right now. Okay.
Commencing virtuous mission now.
Now, ordinarily for something like this, I'd probably go through the games in the order in which they were released, but this being Metal Gear and Hideo Kojima, I think it'll make slightly more sense if we just go through them chronologically. Okay, ready? Let's go. In 1963, an American covert ops outfit, codenamed Fox, led by a man codenamed Major Zero, sent an agent codenamed Naked Snake, Tee-Hee, into deepest Soviet Russia to extract a rocket scientist, Dr. Sokolov, and destroy his invention, a nuclear-armed tank known as the Shagohod. Mid-mission, Naked Snake is stopped by his former mentor, the Boss, who takes back Sokolov and tells Snake she's defected to Russia and given her new host 2 nuclear warheads as a present. Snake escapes, but Volgin, a Russian colonel and sadist who apparently has weird electric powers, detonates one of the warheads and destroys the facility. Sometime later, after Snake recovers, Major Zero sends him back to Russia under orders from the US government to kill the Boss, disprove the US's involvement in the warhead detonation, and destroy the Shagohod for real this time. He's helped by double agent Eva, who turns out to be a spy for the Chinese People's Liberation Army. She's tasked with obtaining the Philosopher's Legacy, a $100 billion savings account belonging to the Philosophers, a shady bunch of rich people that were vaguely told control everything from behind the scenes. After having a boss fight with a ladder, meeting a dude who shoots bees, eating a buttload of wildlife, puking it up, and otherwise just waiting for nature to take its course, Naked Snake destroys the tank, kills the Boss and Volgin, and obtains half of the legacy. He gets a new name, Big Boss, which is kind of lame, but he's more annoyed because the Boss was actually good all along and had to die for the mission, even though she wasn't a traitor, and so he leaves the Fox unit. About 6 years later, in 1970, Big Boss gets captured and tortured by his old Fox unit. They're bad now. He meets a soldier called Roy Campbell, escapes, and gets blamed for Fox's new evilness. Big Boss and Roy create Foxhound, a unit to take down the Fox members and clear their names. They do this, but it turns out that it was all just a big ploy to get the director of the CIA out of hiding so that Ocelot and Major Zero could obtain the Philosopher's Legacy. Ocelot gets it and gets a list of all the Philosophers. Ocelot, Major Zero, and Big Boss use the legacy to change the Philosophers and create the Patriots. Big Boss heads up the Patriots, and the organization takes control of the US government from the inside. With us so far, this is tough going, so for a break, watch these eggs cooking for a few seconds.
7, 8, 9, 2, 5, 9, 0, 3, 6, 0.
Over the next couple of years, Foxhound becomes an official operation, and Major Zero creates 3 clones of the Boss, with Eva as a surrogate in an attempt to breed the perfect soldier. Twins Liquid Snake and Solid Snake were regarded as inferior, so a third child, Solidus, was born and thought of as the best, even though he has the stupidest name. These clones have accelerated aging and are not able to reproduce, just FYI. Big Boss didn't know about this whole little creepy side project of Zero's, and instead of being flattered, he's actually really pissed off when he finds out and leaves the Patriots, believing them to be too corrupt because he's essentially a nice guy, except apparently just a bit dim. Big Boss, having not learned his lesson about military groups, goes off in a huff and makes a new one, Militaires Sans Frontières, heading off to Costa Rica to save a whole country from an army formed of a rogue CIA unit, who've taken over and are building a Metal Gear because, thematically speaking, someone has to. It's right there in the title. This new gear is called Peace Walker, and its AI is based on the Boss, Big Boss's former mentor, because reasons. A CIA agent named Hot Cold Man, no seriously, tries to get Peace Walker to fire at Militaires Sans Frontières because he doesn't like their faces, but Cold Man is killed by the KGB. Before he dies though, he reprograms the Peace Walker to fire on Cuba and makes the US think the Soviets are about to send a missile strike in their direction. Whew, you cold man. BTW, he was the guy responsible for planning the virtuous mission that deliberately killed the Boss. Big Boss tries to save the day and fails, but thankfully the Boss AI sacrifices itself and saves the world. Big Boss is pretty pissed that everyone keeps fighting and so decides to create his own Metal Gears and a military nation, like that's a thing. He names this nation Outer Heaven and plans to use it to take on Major Zero and the Patriots. A few months after the Peace Walker incident in 1975, Big Boss tries to infiltrate a site known as Camp Omega, which is being run by a mysterious Black Ops paramilitary force, Zoff, headed up by the delightfully named Skullface. These guys want to get their hands on Major Zero, and so have kidnapped Big Boss's former ally and Zero's double agent Paz and former child soldier Chico in order to interrogate them as to Zero's whereabouts. It all gets super messy, Zoff destroys Big Boss's whole military outfit, and all the survivors crash into the sea, and Paz dies horribly, but not before most likely telling Skullface where Zero is. Now this is the part in the story where the phantom pain kicks in, and we definitely don't want to spoil any of that right now, so let's just have a look at the dog that we'll be controlling in that game. Oh, look at him. In 1995, the US gets antsy about the fact that Outer Heaven is building Metal Gear and send in Foxhound to destroy it, not knowing that Big Boss runs both organizations. Small world. Big Boss sends in super cool ninja Grey Fox to Outer Heaven to sort out the situation, but he's captured. So he then sends in Foxhound newbie Solid Snake, who has no idea that Big Boss is actually his dad, to save Grey Fox. He does, and then tries to continue his mission of destroying Outer Heaven's gear, which Big Boss doesn't want because he likes his cool robot toys. He reveals to Snake that he's the leader of Outer Heaven and effectively the big bad. Snake goes OMG and destroys the facility. Big Boss survives and extracts his people, and they all run off to the Middle East. Roy Campbell, you remember him, gets a wee promotion and becomes the boss of Foxhound. It's 1999, let's party like the world's oil is low. A dude creates a synthetic oil to sort everyone out, but he gets kidnapped and taken to Zanzibar. Roy Campbell sends in Solid Snake to get this Dr. Marv out, but he's already dead. Snake finds the formula for the oil though, so it's no big deal. He finds out that Big Boss isn't dead, he fights him. Big Boss dies, but not before revealing he's Solid's dad, probably triggering some sort of latent existential crisis. Except, of course, Big Boss totally isn't dead. The Patriots find him and Major Zero gets all nostalgic and mushy and puts him in cold storage. Ocelot gets jealous. Major Zero is pretty old by this stage and doesn't know who to entrust running the Patriots to after he dies, so he decides to create a computer program to run it instead. Skynet says hello. And this system, comprised of separate AI parts but governed by one master AI that requires Big Boss's biometric data in order to access, takes over the running of the organization. It also makes Solid Snake the President of the United States. Sure, why not? Soon after, Roy Campbell leaves Foxhound and Liquid Snake joins, becoming its leader.
This is Snake. Colonel, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. What's the situation, Snake?
In 2005, Foxhound launches an uprising on a remote island in Alaska called Shadow Moses. They have a nuclear-capable Metal Gear Rex, which, although it sounds like a big adorable robot dog, isn't.
We're going to launch that nuke and ride it all the way into history.
They want the frozen remains of Big Boss in 24 hours or they launch a nuclear strike, so Roy Campbell and Solid Snake come out of retirement for one last party to recover hostages, which he does, but then they keep dying, the little rascals. Ocelot finds Snake and challenges him to a gun-off, but his arm gets chopped off by a cyborg ninja who turns out to be Grey Fox. He's alive. Snake rescues Metal Gear Rex's creator, Hal Emmerich, aka Otacon, making a new BFF, and Meryl, Roy Campbell's daughter that he had time to have with his brother's wife despite doing all this weird military ops stuff over the years. Solid Snake fights Liquid Snake, who's piloting Rex, until Grey Fox comes in to help Solid. Rex squishes Grey Fox, and Liquid has a heart attack brought on by a synthetic virus. Fox dies and dies. Solid Snake is infected by it too. It's designed to target specific people by their DNA and was made by Dr. Naomi Hunter in an effort to avenge Grey Fox even though he was alive and is now dead again. Tough break. I didn't even mention the bunch of guys and gals with weird powers. One of them throws shade at you for the games that you've been playing.
Your memory is completely clean.
Everyone finds out that Solidus was basically a supervillain and he steps down as President of the United States and goes on the run with Ocelot, who uses Liquid Snake's arm to replace the one he lost, because waste not, want not. 2 years later, in 2007, Solid Snake sneaks on board a ship carrying another Metal Gear Ray. Everyone continues to refuse to question the massive impracticality of these bipedal tanks, despite it being several decades and all they've done is waste everyone's time and money. Snake has a gun battle with a pregnant lady and takes some nice pictures of the robot, but a liquid-possessed Ocelot working for the Patriots, aka the Lalilulelo, thank God that name doesn't stick, shows up, blows up the tanker and steals the Metal Gear. Snake gets blamed for the whole thing and so runs off and hides. Not long after, a terrorist group known as the Sons of Liberty, who claim Solid Snake as their leader, attack a marine decontamination facility offshore from Manhattan known as the Big Shell. Foxhound sends in virtually trained rookie agent and secret Targaryen Raiden to rescue the hostages, which includes the current President of the United States. Raiden, who also happens to be Solidus Snake's adopted son but lost his memory of all that, is helped by a guy calling himself Pliskin, who definitely isn't Solid Snake but then reveals himself to be Solid Snake after the guy claiming to be Solid Snake turns out to be Solidus Snake, which when you think about it sounds like a poo. Anyway, he fights a bunch of weird soldiers, meets a pirate, gets sexually assaulted by the US president, and then all of Big Shell turns out to be one big Metal Gear arsenal, which actually contains one of the AI programs that controls the computer systems that run the Patriots. It turns out the whole situation on Big Shell, the bomber on roller skates, the cyborg ninja, the vampires, the bird poop, okay maybe not the bird poop, were all a carefully planned and massively contrived attempt to recreate everything that happened on Shadow Moses to see if the Patriots could simulate the events necessary to make another hero like Solid Snake, because that's what hyper-intelligent computer systems with limitless wealth and power like to do when they're bored. Raiden is pretty peeved about all of this, especially when the Patriot AI tells him to kill Solidus or they kill innocents. Raiden does kill Solidus, although not before finding out he was his foster father, and then vows to hunt down and stop the Patriots for good. Liquid Ocelot runs off with Metal Gear. And nobody really questions whether they should be turning their attention to immortal vampires or technology that can literally bend bullets instead of these big stupid robots, because where would the money be in either of those two things? Anyway, years later, private military companies supercharged by future tech, including big and practical robots that sound like cows and nanomachine enhancements, pretty much run the world. Liquid Ocelot is behind the biggest of these companies, so the world leaders want rid of him and send in Solid, who is suffering from accelerated aging and so is pretty old now, to kill him. Snake tries and fails to kill Ocelot, but rescues Dr. Naomi Hunter, the creator of the Fox Dye virus. She tells him that the virus in his body is now unstable and that Liquid Ocelot wants Big Boss's frozen body to retrieve the biometric data needed to access the Master Patriot AI, which, if you'll remember, was created by Major Zero and in hindsight doesn't seem like a very smart way of securing the data that literally runs the world. Anyway, Solid continues fighting the Mini-Moo mechs, and then Raiden shows up. He's gone through puberty and is a robot now. A bunch of strange ladies fight Snake. Ocelot gets a hold of the Big Boss Red Herring Ice Cream Sundae and uses it to take control of the world's nanomachines. He shuts down every army in the world apart from his own and then goes to Shadow Moses to get Metal Gear Rex and destroy the Patriots for good. Remember, he doesn't like them anymore. Solid Snake, Raiden and Naomi Hunter stop Ocelot, create a version of the Fox Dye virus and upload it into the Patriots' central core. The Patriots are destroyed, as are all AIs and nanomachines in the world. Hooray! Solid Snake and Liquid Ocelot have one last fight/bare-chested goodbye hug and Liquid Ocelot dies. Only we find out that Ocelot was only pretending to be Liquid Snake to trick the Patriots AI using a cocktail of drugs and nanotech, except towards the end he really did believe he was Liquid, so whatever, his dad was a ghost. Anyway, Snake decides that with not long to live and a mutating virus inside of him, he wants to end his life, but before he can, Big Boss shows up. Surprise! He's not really dead. The frozen remains were Solidus's. He's with the super old man, Major Zero, who must be like a zillion years old at this stage. The two end their decades-long feud, and Major Zero dies. Then Big Boss dies. Solid Snake decides not to die yet. The end! Hooray! I did it! Did I leave anything out? Probably. I don't care. Leave it in the comments. I'm off for a lie down.
I was born in a small village. I was still a child when we were raided by soldiers. Foreign soldiers. Torn from my elders, I was made to speak their language.